What would you advise your daughter if she ever brought that up to you?
That she wanted to do that?
Yeah.
Good question. Wow, that's a tough one.
Because it's hard because with these kids, you can't say.
You can't say no.
No, because you might push them away.
Or you did it.
Yeah. Welcome to So Where Are You From? I'm your host, Nooshin Bagheri, a first-generation Iranian-American by identity and an immigration attorney by profession. Today we have Ms. Layla Massoomi, an insurance practitioner who has kindly joined us today to share her personal story as a follow-up to last week's episode. Last week, my guest was a counselor where the topic was in regards to those who decide to marry someone from another country. She provided insight on the hardships that marriages face, the reality of leaving it all for love, and the expectations and the motive to find love abroad. Today, Layla is speaking with us to share her own experience of marrying someone from abroad. Hi, Layla. Welcome, and thank you for coming today.
Hi, Nooshin. Thank you for having me.
So, Layla, I do have to ask, where are you from?
I am from Iran, but I have grown up here in America. I've been here since I was 2 years old.
Okay, so that's definitely majority of your life.
Yes.
Would you describe yourself more of having an Iranian or American mindset and values?
I'd say I'm pretty much in between, a little bit of both worlds, because I was raised very Iranian. My parents raised me pretty much as if we lived in Iran.
Yes.
But we lived here.
Yes.
So, but then, you just pick up things because you're here in your environment. So it becomes kind of like half and half, I guess.
Half and half. Yeah. No, I understand that. That's how it is. You're in your own little bubble, especially during the high school years. And then when you finally go out to college and the world, then you kind of...
You're able to do a little more.
A little more, yes. Sadly. You have to wait to that point.
Right.
So your parents being from Iran, how do they influence your childhood and adult, your young adult experience?
So it was a struggle. It was a struggle growing up because everything was done by the way they knew, how they were raised.
Yes.
Even though around me, completely different things were going on, but I had to be in a completely different mindset. So it was a struggle when everybody else wanted to do things and hang out and go here and go there. And they're like, well, what does that mean? Of course you can't do that. And we don't do this. We don't do that. We don't have boyfriends. We don't go places. We don't sleep over.
We don't date.
We don't do any of that. So it was a struggle. It was a struggle. I mean, I think I grew up hearing no all the time.
Yes, and I think that was the frustrating part with me when I have my kids. The part of the cycle I try to break is our parents always just say no, and it was frustrating because you just never knew why. You thought they're just being closed-minded, but what I start doing is I say no, and the reason why, and mainly is out of protection. And then they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it." I don't know. I think if our parents kind of did that, maybe we could see their sides a little bit more.
We didn't get explanations.
No explanations. No
just
talking back.
That's what we said. That's how it is. That's how I did it. That's how I was raised. You're like, okay, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense.
Exactly. So after schooling and everything, you got married, and you married someone actually from back home country of Iran.
I did.
So what influenced you? What was your mindset of marrying someone from back home? Did you feel like, even though technically you're of the same background and culture, in a sense you're not though, but what was your mindset marrying someone from back home?
So I think then I didn't think it through properly. I just thought we're from the same country, we can speak the same language. How much different can it be?
Exactly.
This is how everybody did it in our country. That's how our parents did it. And they do. And times have totally changed from then. I mean, I'm talking, 20 plus years ago. So then my, family members, and you would hear people would do like the traditional, they come, ask for your hand in marriage kind of thing, and you're like all blindsided and you don't know, and you sit in a room and for a couple of hours and you're like, so, trying to get to know each other, and you kind of go from there. And you would see a success rate in it, oddly, but there was. So, I mean, mine wasn't like that, but after going to Iran several times and visiting, and, there was someone that was in love with me, and it was just this beautiful thing. And I was like, wow, why not? If everything aligns and it all works out, then I'm going to take it as fate and it's meant to be. And that's pretty much.
So was it anything about your parents? Did they have any like expectations of who to marry? Like, did it have to be an Iranian? Did it have to be a certain type or someone?
I think it was kind of an unsaid thing that you just knew that you were supposed to marry Iranian. They never said it has to be this or has to be that, but it was something that I kind of knew. So I thought by doing this, it would make them happy. It would be easier. They would understand each other a little bit better. And I'm already used to this kind of atmosphere, so it shouldn't be much of a change for me.
Yeah. So getting to know somebody even here where you live and before entering marriage is hard enough.
Oh, yes.
So I can imagine that's always kind of like what bewilders me is sometimes the people who do marry someone from abroad, like you're dating abroad, you have so much time spent. So the little time that you are together is like the honeymoon period. And you get caught up into that.
You do.
And it's how did you overcome that? Like, did you even think about that or?
No, to be honest, I really didn't. It is like you say, you're in this honeymoon phase. When you're there, I mean, when you go to Iran, it's so much fun anyways.
Yes,
and then
happens.
so, this happened in an environment when your guard is down, you're very relaxed, you're amongst family, you're amongst love, and it feels right.
It feels comfortable and kind of, because especially amongst family, like if people know each other, it feels like right.
It just feels like you're doing the right thing. It's like this is, it's something I always tell my friends, being raised here, being very Iranian, there's something about like the dirt there, like the ground, it grounds you, it sucks you in, and everything works differently. So I went with it, and I didn't realize how difficult it would be. Now, I was able to understand him a little better because, so during the process, I lived in Iran for a year.
Oh, you did? Okay, wow.
I lived there with him for a year.
Was this before he got married or after he got married?
After.
Okay.
Right after we got married, while he was working through the process of getting his stuff, his immigration stuff in order to come here, I stayed there.
Okay.
I didn't have anything that I needed to take care of here, so I was fortunate enough to be able to be there. And that was where the adjustment came in.
Oh, really? While you were there?
Yes,
Okay.
because I was somebody here that I drove myself everywhere. I did everything on my own. I wasn't dependent on my parents, after you're older and whatnot. But then I go to this country. I am illiterate there, can't read or write. I can't go anywhere without him with me, or anybody with me per se. If you put me somewhere like in a bank or anything that has to do with like government stuff or whatnot, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like even if I wanted to just go to the grocery store, I would get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So it was an adjustment for me, which made me be able to understand like a foreshadow of what he's going to go through.
Okay.
So I was able to, I guess, have more empathy for him.
Interesting.
When he came here, because I knew how difficult it was for me, and it's going to be 100 times difficult for him. In our culture, the man is in control. Like he gets married and brings a woman into the
provider.
Exactly, into his life. So in this case, whatever he had, his home, his car, his business, he had to leave it all and come here and enter my world and try to build that for me to come into it. So it was difficult, to say the least.
Interesting. So when you were there, when you're going through this kind of temporary adjustment, in the back of your head, you knew that I'm getting out of here, so this is not going to be my forever.
Yes.
What was his impression of wanting to come to the U.S.?
So for him, his family had businesses abroad in the Arabic countries. Mm-hmm. So he was already going to leave Iran and go live there. So he wasn't one of those that was like, oh, excited to come to America.
Yeah.
It was just because I was here and he came because of me. So he wasn't, I don't think he had that excitement, more of just like this unknown, like what's going to happen, what am I going to do, you know, that kind of thing. And just a a fear, I guess, you know, but it was.
Was it more of like, I guess, a fear of kind of like, I hate to say for the men, like the ego fear of how am I going to provide? How am I going to show up as the man in this relationship?
Everything. Yes. All of it. All of the above.
So, how much of it did you have to help? Like, how did you have to help him adjust?
Everything.
Did he know the language at least?
No.
Wow.
No. We had to kind of, so in the process, like before, whenever we knew that this was happening, we would work on it. But again, so funny enough, my Farsi wasn't the best. My Farsi now is improved 100 times because of being married. Since he didn't know any English, I was forced to, step it up with my Farsi. And I did, and it became a lot better. But then my Farsi improved, but it didn't help his English because we would just speak Farsi. And I think you think like you know the same language, but being raised here, I guess you can also relate. We have a tendency to want to speak in English because there's things that you can just say better in English than you can in Farsi, and vice versa, though. I
think a lot of people were like, "How come you don't speak Farsi?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, my mother tongue is English. Just because my parents are Iranian, I was born here. My mother tongue is English. So it's not like I have to know it, but I do want to know it. And I'm glad I know it." But it's not my main language.
Right. And it's funny, like I will speak in Farsi, but I think in English.
Yes.
Yes. My thought process is English. So I have to change it when I say it in Farsi. So I had to do everything for him. So it wasn't a wife-husband dynamic at that point. It almost felt like a mother-child dynamic.
Yeah. Wow. Did that affect him kind of psychologically?
Absolutely. I mean, who wouldn't get affected by something like that, And he's doing the best he can, and then you can have understanding and empathy to an extent, but and then you are husband and wife. You're not mother-son, mother-child relationship, so it plays a toll on both parties.
What about the aspect? Would you see him bring like kind of, I don't want to say the old school, like the foreign mentality into your life because you're raised here, you're American?
Absolutely. Like one thing that was hard from the beginning to try to, and to top it off, he was raised in a very religious household.
Okay, wow.
So we were both Muslim by birth, right? And by, I guess, identifying as Muslim. But as far as practicing, I didn't grow up practicing any kind of religion, pretty much. My parents always said we are Muslim, and there's certain things that we learn, certain prayers, I guess. But as far as being like praying and doing all those different, I guess per se, rituals or whatnot, I didn't grow up with that. So it was hard because he was like 100% into it, and I learned more about religion and all those rituals, I guess we call them, whatever, through him.
Okay.
Not through my parents, but through him.
Yeah.
Like the first time that I fasted, it was after I was married because he fasted.
Yeah.
So I fasted with him. But I didn't grow up knowing these things. So it was different, and I tried to.
Did he expect it of you, or did you just want to? Because sometimes with us are born here, I would have to say that we want to grasp more because we're not taught the religion like everyone else is back home, or the culture, and we want to grasp onto that identity even more so. Like I kind of wish I knew more about the rituals and so forth. So I can see like when you were doing it, it wasn't like to appease him, but also was it something to grasp, to understand more?
It was. I mean, I would ask a lot of questions, and I think sometimes though, the more questions you ask, it kind of takes you further away because I think with our mindset, we're grown to understand things have to make sense to us.
Yes.
I'm not one to take it just because this is how it is, so just do it.
Yeah.
I have a hard time grasping that.
Yes.
Okay, I'll do it, but I want it to make sense to me.
Yes.
So explain it. So when we would get into explanations, that's when I was like, okay, well, I can't do that anymore because I don't believe in that. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe if I didn't know, I would do better at it. But that's where, like at the beginning, I just kind of went with the flow. He did it. Okay, I'll do it too. And then as we got into it, conversations arise. So what does this mean exactly? Why are we doing this?
You would question the system.
I would exactly. I want to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why am I starving myself? Or just anything, So, but then that kind of.
Why am I being hangry? I love to be hangry
all the time. So that would cause more of a a gap, I guess, because I didn't see it through his eyes. Well, he saw it because a lot of it from the minute he opened his eyes, that's all he saw, but not me. So he just learned it because it was like drinking water.
Yeah.
Like every time at this time we do this. Everybody does it. We do it too. So I think I kind of challenged him too a little bit because he may not have known why he was doing what he was doing either.
Yeah.
You know? So some of the things we both agreed mutually, like, yeah, that really doesn't make sense, you know? And then other things, he was like, no, Layla, this is how it is. This is what we do. This is what I do. This is what my family does. And I was like, okay, well, I don't get it. I don't believe it. So,
yeah. So how would that happen, though? How would you overcome that? Would he respect that you doing your own thing?
Yeah. Yes, he would. He would respect that. I'm like, I'm not telling you not to do it, but, you do you on certain things and I'll do me.
That's
so
fair.
no one disrespects each other.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Would you say you changed his viewpoint and influenced them into your ways?
Eventually, yes.
Eventually, yes. Yeah.
And because I think only because of the environment we lived in. I think if we stayed there, I think maybe I would have changed more because that's all I would see and know. But being here, yes, I think I was more influential.
And then you two, well, now currently he is your ex-husband, we'll make that clear, but you two have two beautiful children.
Yes, we do.
How was that and the influence of the kids then?
So in what aspect?
And I guess raising.
Raising. Yeah. That was a little bit difficult because... So he probably was raised the same way my parents were.
Yeah.
And those were his views. But me, I was like, no way am I going to raise my kids the way I was raised.
We're breaking that cycle.
Right? Exactly. It stops here. Yes. So we had more of a relationship to where I was like, I just don't feel comfortable with you doing A, B, or C for these reasons. Like you mentioned, we would give explanations.
Yes.
And then with those explanations, they would understand and they would respect and they would be like, okay.
Yes.
And if I didn't give those explanations, they were going to rebel and do it anyways.
Exactly.
And then that was just going to cause more.
They were just nagging.
Right, right.
And out spite. Yeah.
Right. So, and I don't want to take away from them because there were so many things that I wished I got to experience.
Yes.
And I don't want my kids not to be able to experience. That's part of growing up here.
Exactly.
Exactly. I want them to fit in. I want them to be like everyone else.
Yes.
Just because their skin's a little darker and they look foreign or have foreign names or whatnot, I don't want that to cause them to not be able to be looked at as one with their peers.
Yes.
So I didn't. That's where it stopped, but that's where we had a lot of, I guess, pushback. He didn't understand that, and for me to try to explain to him, look, I've experienced it.
Yes.
I went through it. We don't want to do that to them. Trust me, So, again, it kind of ended up going with my way.
Okay.
And I think that was what was best for them.
Yeah.
And then because we separated early on when the kids were still, fairly young, it was easier in a sense because there was no conflict between the two of us. They lived with me. It was pretty much my decision to do things. I mean, I would discuss things with him, major things, but on a day-to-day, living, it was my decision on most things. So I guess in hindsight, it was like a blessing in disguise. So it didn't cause more friction, I guess, in raising the kids. And on the religious aspect of it, I just didn't. I said, I think I want to explain the religion to them and let them be open to what they want to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to force them to be one thing just because I'm that.
Yes.
This is what your family is, your mother, your father, your grandparents, everybody. But at the same token, I want you to be you. So my neighbors, I was very close with my neighbors. They would go to church. My kids would go to church with them. My kids would go to the mosque with my parents sometimes on certain occasions. So they were around all of it. They were exposed to everything. And at that point, they can decide exactly what they want. And I think just not saying, no, this is bad, we don't do that, we don't do this, it just creates something that is not necessary.
So with all, because it does sound like it was a lot of work when you bring someone over. There's a lot of adjustments from both sides. Even though you're here, you're adjusting to having this husband from, so only having a husband, let alone someone that, you really never had a chance to get to know as well in your own environment. would you ever consider marrying someone from abroad again? Not necessarily, I guess, it has to be from Iran or your home country, but someone abroad, like with all the work that goes into the pros and cons.
So I wouldn't be against marrying somebody from another culture. You know, I love culture, especially having, you know, so much of my own. I would love to embrace another culture. But as far as going overseas and bringing someone here, I don't think it's for me. It was, marriage in itself is hard.
Yeah.
On its own, even if you've been here and you were neighbors with the person all of your life, it's hard. And then bringing that aspect onto it makes a whole nother difficulty on top of it. And maybe, not to say that it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And there are people who have their spouses or whoever the other person in another country, and they've been together for years. Like they know each other, you know. But for me, being raised here pretty much completely, and for someone else who's been raised all of their life in another country, I think it's really, really difficult. I think maybe I wish, you know what they say, how I wish I knew now
what I knew then.
Yes. Yeah, something like that. So if I knew then, I would have suggested like some counseling maybe beforehand.
I was going to ask, like, what for those, because it may work for some.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think like you did bring a good point. Maybe those, even it could be like an immigrant that came here recently, is still able to marry someone from abroad.
Yeah.
But we were grown here, especially if you're grown in two different environments. No matter the culture may be the same, the environment, the society is completely different.
Yeah, and that plays a huge role.
So what would your advice be for those who, you know, are thinking about or considering marrying someone from abroad, even from their own home country? Like, what would your advice be?
Think it through. Think it through. I don't know. It's funny. Like, whenever I think it's to each and every person is different, depending on who you are, depending on, and it depends on the person, how much they're willing to do on their own, how much they're willing, how adaptable they are to change.
Yeah.
I think that plays a huge role. I think it's a lot more difficult for men to do that than women. Women, you hear it happening all the time, and there's a much higher success rate, I believe, than men, because men, it's harder because they're living, especially in certain cultures like ours, where it's a male-dominant culture, and these men have everything there, and you know, he had power where he was.
So what made him agree to do that, to give that all up? That's what I can see how it is hard for men. Yeah,
he wanted to be here with me, and he did give up a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a business. He had his own business. Very young. He had a house. And 20 some odd years ago, not everybody had vehicles in Iran.
Yeah.
He had a car. I mean, he had everything.
Yeah.
And, but he was willing to give it all up. And, and I appreciated that. I truly did. And I think sometimes in our conversations, I was like, do you want me to come live here? And he was like, you could never do that.
Yeah, you couldn't do that, could
you? You couldn't do it. And I thought maybe I could, in theory, you can do everything. Yeah, I could do that. It shouldn't be a problem. But, oh no. After that 1 year, I was like, get me out of here. I love it, but it's great for vacation.
Yes.
It's great for visiting. It's not great for us, an implant, to come there. And I think it's easier the other way around because this country has opportunity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's doable,
yeah.
I think it's doable and people can do it. I think you should do your research. I think you should think it very thoroughly, be logical. Mm-hmm. Don't think in a honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
And kind of try to map it out. And I think maybe that would help. I didn't do any of those things.
Yeah. No, we were not taught that. We weren't. Now there's so many more resources. It's more talked about.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't talked then. So there's one thing great with in regards to immigration law. So what you did sound like you applied for you got married, you applied for a green card, and that's called consular processing, where you're already married and you're bringing them over. Mm-hmm. But there's this one great process, the fiancé visa, where it allows you to bring someone over. They can stay for 90 days. You see if you guys can mesh together. You see if the other person wants to actually be here, kind of live here before you apply for a green card.
Right.
So gives that, you have 90 days to decide if you want to get married or not.
And I think that's
Would you have done that
route.
instead?
Yes. Yes, definitely I would. And I think that's a route everyone should take. But another layer on top of that, with our culture being Muslim. You can't really do that.
You can't do that.
So I think another thing that made things difficult for me, so when I went to Iran to get married, I was there probably like 3-4 months before like the wedding date was. Mm-hmm. And because, again, like I mentioned, he was a very religious family, as soon as I got there, they said, well, so in Islam, there's the mahram, so you can be together and you can't be together. So I had to get married right away. Yeah. So I was there within a week. I was technically married to, it was like a court wedding. Yeah. It wasn't my actual wedding, but I was married to the man.
It was a legal wedding.
It was a legal wedding, so he was my legal husband. So
just there's spend time together.
There's really no turning back, because even, let's say that grace period, and I said like a engagement period, and if I said no, that would have already been a divorce for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the part.
So you're like, they like get you right then and it's done.
They're always like, yeah, just sign this so you guys can hang out together, but then you have your wedding later. I'm like, no, but that is still the technical marriage.
It is. Yeah. It's a absolute marriage.
Yeah, you're signing legal documents.
Yeah,
you're officially married.
You are husband and wife.
Party. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the celebration of what happened months and months ago.
Yeah.
So, I don't think our country is like that anymore. No. That's a huge thing that they have evolved as well.
Oh my God, they're involved more.
Yeah.
The youth there are having so many more privileges than we had growing up here. They're living together, unmarried with their boyfriends.
Everyone has
never
boyfriends.
Could have had even a date.
No, exactly. So things are way different than they used to be.
Yes.
I guess this was supposed to be how my life was supposed to be. You did something and, it didn't work, but
got two beautiful children.
I have 2 beautiful children, and it was an experience.
It is.
It's an experience, and you learn a lot.
And what we learn, we're passing it on to our kids to not to go through that. Otherwise, that cycle will have just been going and going. Yeah. No, it is. Yeah. Like we weren't taught there the concept of red flags, boundaries.
Oh,
all this stuff.
None of that stuff. Yeah. They want to marry you. They're a good family.
All about the family had to be good.
Yeah, it was a good family. It was a good fit. He can provide for you. He's a good man. Exactly. He's this, he's that. It's like, okay, he checked all the boxes. Yeah. The then boxes, not the today boxes.
Not today boxes.
But, it's different. That's how times change and things are different. So I think if someone's doing it today, it's going to be a higher of a success rate, I believe.
What would you advise your daughter if she ever brought that up to you?
That she wanted to do that? Yeah. Good question. Wow, that's a tough one.
Because it's hard because with these kids you can't say
no.
No, because you might push them away.
Or you did it.
Yeah,
kind of thing. So I have to raise her in a way to where she is confident in herself. She knows what she deserves. Yes. She knows what life will entail, and I will give her my feedback.
Yeah.
Good and bad, because that's my job as her mother. And all we want is for them to be happy in the end. So I would just share with her some of my experiences. That doesn't mean my experiences are going to be her experiences. Again, times are completely different now. Yeah. But, I would raise some awareness in certain areas and tell her to look out here, and, just kind of feel it, feel it out and see how it feels and what it is. And I wouldn't tell her no.
Yeah.
But, I guess they
have to learn. Everyone has to learn. Everyone has their own path and journey.
Exactly. And we take from people here and there. But it's funny how even though somebody will experience something and they're like, I wouldn't do that, we still do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have to go through it.
It's like we have to do it ourselves.
Yeah, to learn a lesson.
And that's natural.
Yeah.
That's a natural thing. So.
And no, times are different. Like even back, when we got married, it was 20 years ago, that there was no iPhone, no text messages, definitely no FaceTime.
No, you know how much money I would spend on talking on the phone then?
So to really get to know someone was even more harder. Now it's a little bit,
you can FaceTime, you can show them where you are, what you're doing. Yeah,
share more of your lives together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it might be better. Might be better.
It could be, it could be different now. Exactly.
But it all depends. It's not about the culture of the country. It's about the person.
Absolutely.
It's all about the person.
100%. It's about who you are. It's about how willing you are to change.
Yeah.
It's about how any relationship, it's about respect.
Yes.
It's about trust.
Yes.
It's about compromise.
Yes.
And I think all of those are really, really important. And if you have that foundation and those pillars, then you can be successful in any kind of relationship. Yeah. It's just, it's all to do with who you are and what you're willing to, give up. Yes. Or what you're willing to do to make it work.
Make it work. It is work.
Oh, it definitely is work. I mean, it's work if everything's perfect, and then just add, obstacles.
I can see where with you, it helps when they have the same cultural background because there's less explanation of why did we do this? Why did my parents expect this from you or that? Yeah. But then sometimes it's, you can still be the same background but still raised completely differently.
Yeah, and then it's, then you have little things that get in the way, and it's not anything that's wrong with you or me per se. It's just what I'm used to, what I know, like something really simple that you wouldn't think anything. But here, when we greet people, we hug.
Yeah.
Or you do the kiss on either cheek. Cheeks. But for someone who's very religious from Iran, 20 plus years ago, they don't do that. Like, he wouldn't even shake hands with a person. So now me being his wife and I'm greeting men, that was a big thing for us.
Wow.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, that was just a hello. But because they are raised different, it's little things that create such an impact.
Yeah.
That you don't think.
Oh my God, I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yes, me too.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your personal journey and story. Really, really appreciate it. I know there's a lot out there. A lot of people may consider it, who's gone through it. Like you say, we're all learning in this life. And if we can share and spread some wisdom one way or the other, then, it can help somebody else through that adjustment.
Yeah. I wish everybody, love and happiness. I'm all about the love,
the ishq.
The ishq. So I wish everyone, in all their endeavors and all their relationships, if you want to go for it, if that's what your heart wants. And if you can align this and this, then do it.
Yes. Do it. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me.
Really enjoyed it.
All right.